kind of paintings from Big Mama's house.
Yeah.
And so, I had the pleasure of like meeting him over there one night and sitting down like we are right now.
Oh, nice.
And it's just like,
it's surreal, right?
It is surreal. Especially, I showed up like, it was already after dark and kind of go in there and, the lighting in there is like 20-watt bulbs or something.
Yeah.
And like,
and see, I didn't get to go after dark. I went during the day, and the way that the light comes in through these windows is that's really eerie too.
Right.
And you just kind of like, you can paint in this place.
Right. It seemed like a lot of the windows were even covered up. Right?
Yeah.
Because he's using as much of it as working space as he can.
Right.
Those canvases are huge.
Yeah.
But no, I mean Cedric, he's just so contemplative and just really grounded.
Yes.
And so I can't imagine having a better mentor than
Yeah, especially a mentor like that. When I'm new to having a family. Right. He's grounded in family and spirituality.
Right.
So a lot of that comes up in the conversation too.
Sure.
So a lot of the conversation does help you stay grounded.
Right.
It has like slight contrast from like a Trendall Hancock, right? Who's a bit more like, if the gallery's tripping, go get your stuff. It's like, they're both about artist empowerment, but I think Trenton's more like artist empowerment, right?
Right.
Cedric's more of talks of obtaining success without giving anything up in terms of your values, right?
Right.
So it kind of, they balance it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
You've been showing at Fort Works Art for 4 years or something. Is that who represents you, or is that you basically just keep on getting solo shows there?
They used to represent me. Yeah, so I was rep there around the time of that opening. I had been working with them before they got the building.
Right.
They were doing pop-ups at this place called The Warehouse, which was in a warehouse in Fort Worth. And we had some success there and fun times there. And then they got the building. And, they started to sign artists then when they got the building, which you have to at that point. 'Cause now you have overhead.
Right.
So understanding the business aspect of it, it made sense. And kind of being in love with business. I don't think a lot of artists are really, but when you start to consider that we're in the sales business, even though this is a cultural thing, it's it's an artistic thing, it's still the sales business. And so, my problems were never issues with percentage. It was more so my mindset when I was signed, right? I got complacent, and that's when I leaned heavily on graphic design.
Right.
I was doing a lot of graphic design work just to get the kids through daycare and pay rent and things like that. Me and my wife were working together with that because when it comes to sales, she's great.
Right.
And so, we were doing that, and just something felt like it was missing. I went and worked at Academy that lasted 2 weeks.
Right.
I was like, I'm just folding shirts here.
Right.
I could be doing something better with my time. And I remember coming home, and she was like, okay, listen, hear me out. I'm like, okay. It's like, I'm still in my uniform. Just got home. She's like, I think you should quit your job. I was like, yeah? Looking around like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's like, yeah, but you have to be in the studio Monday through Friday. Right. Sometimes Saturday. Give us Sunday, though. I'm like, okay. She said, we got to really go hard, and we got to really make it happen and make it work. I was like, okay. Like this big weight came off of me then.
Yeah.
And this sense of knowing exactly what I need to do showed up in this place. And so we started to do that, and we're putting in a lot of work. And I'm like, well, Holloway Fine Art sounds nice, right? And, I'm listening to how I built this podcast, and I'm hearing all these people, how they build businesses, and I'm like, I want to build something.
Yeah.
Right? But I had something right there, you know? And so, I could have done what some of the other artists are doing, just make sales.
Right.
Keep it on the on the hush.
Right.
But for me, I never really, that's too much work. It's too exhausting.
Right.
So my thing was to be offensive, not defensive.
Yeah.
And so I let Lauren know that, hey, this is the route that we want to take. Right. And face to face, just talking, and her being so involved and in tune, which makes her great, is she saw it coming. Right. Just from certain conversations we would have. Right. She saw it coming. So it wasn't a huge shock to her. I'm sure she wished it didn't, wasn't the case. Right. But it was. And so she let me out of contract right then and there. Right. And I left the contract, and for a while, we did our thing. And so she reached out about doing an exhibit upstairs in the upstairs area, half of the upstairs area. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I told her how many works I have done by then, and she was like, okay, look, how about we give you like the whole upstairs area? Right. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I told her the concept and everything I was working on. And she was like, well, okay, look, what if we push it back and then we give you the whole first floor solo exhibit? Right. And I was like, oh, okay. Right. And so in there is a lot of wisdom of Cedric of not burning bridges. Right. Like it could have been a tumultuous thing, like, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah, you could have stormed in and said, forget you.
Yeah, like this isn't working. Right. When the reality is, it was my response to being signed. Right. First there's the illusion of, while you're young and you just had a residency, not much is happening still. Right. And you're just thinking, if I could just get signed. Right. Right. And then you get signed. Right. Or you even before that, you just get approached by a gallery and you tell them no. Because it's not the right fit, and their response is, wow, terrible. Right. Right? Their response is, what are you going to do out there? You're going to starve, you're going to this, and you're like, how are you going to rep yourself? How are you going to take payments and give receipts? Right. I'm like, these people haven't heard of PayPal or Square. Right. So like, you have those kind of interactions, and then you go to this gallery, they're great. But, while we were in that contract, I think one year we made a little over $9,000. Right. And that's just not cutting it for having two kids. Right. At the time, one kid. And so me and my wife stepped it up. Right. And I remember specifically when we had the first solo exhibit, the people I've come to know, I remember being so confused because we sold one piece out of the 30. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, like, is this a success or a failure? Because I really like how it looked. Right. Like how it came out, the people that showed up, how the artists talked, I felt was great. But only one piece sold. I didn't know how to think of that. Right. Now you understand it's both. Right. Like there has to be success on both fronts in a way. So you can continue to justify painting. If I can't make sales, then how do I justify continuing to paint in a way? Right. So we went from that to leaving the contract, and now we have just two of those pieces left. Yeah. Right. And so that, I think, I give credit to me and my wife. Two heads are better than one. Sure. Right. And we figured out that no one will fight for building our household better than we would. Yeah. Or advocate for ourselves better than we would. So that was a big part of it, know. And we had started doing some of that while we were in contract, and we're like, we're doing all this work and we're just kicking it this way. Right. Like. So
what is so is that your wife's full-time role is pumping you up and we're in marketing and operations and just leaving you to be the artist and
for example, she made sure I got here today on time. Put it like that. More people have gotten emails from her than they know.
Now, is it okay that we're meeting on a Sunday afternoon? Because she wanted to carve that out for you guys.
No. Yeah, that was. Now we have a routine down. Right. Like now it's I normally get home at like 4. Right. So now Sunday's nothing really. So but that was she. We got everything balanced out, and it was funny the way we figured it out. It was after we left the contract, and we were just like working on it together. It was no official thing. And then, the kids were gone, we had dinner, we had time to think, and I was like, we were thinking about like business ideas. And I was like, I did this spreadsheet, of like the artwork sold. I was like, check it out. She was like, oh. I was like, yeah, right. I was like, I think we have something right here. Right. And that was the moment where it was really like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what we're going to be.
Right.
This is what we're going to go after.
Right.
And I think when we put it in words and made it firm that way,
right.
that's when everything kind of.
So where do you guys find the majority of your business popping up? Is it online, or is it through, is it just people that have come to shows, seen your work, and or keep on checking in?
It's a combination of all of that. Funny enough, the majority is Instagram. That's where she shines, really,
right,
in that arena. Like, that's how we got into our first collection of the Dean collection, right, through
Swizz
Instagram.
Beatz,
Yeah,
Alicia Keys, right?
Yeah, through Instagram. That's where a majority of the sales come now, right? And now, one thing that's happening now that's different is making more sales gradually, more sales out of state. Right. And 2 of the sales been from Atlanta, and then 2 others like New York. So now it's like, okay, well, we don't know how that's happening. We're just, we're like, well, maybe that's Instagram.
Right.
So we're like, okay, next time someone wants to purchase something, we're going to ask them how they heard about it, so we know, get some data on like what's actually happening. But yeah, Instagram.
Sure.
Like that's been a big component of it. Instagram and being social.
Right.
Also, Facebook too. Like one collector, Doug Sharp, he's bought like 4 or 5 pieces from us.
Right.
And you have things happen like Doug has friends, and he'll come to the studio, which I love, and he'll just drag me out the studio. I'm like, you gotta come have lunch with Chris and Mary Alice.
Right.
You think I buy artwork? They really buy artwork.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you get things like that.
Yeah.
That happens, And so, yeah, it's, and you can see how that could be problematic being signed.
Right.
Right? Because then you gotta like call dibs on people.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was silly.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Like, this is mine.
Yeah, or like you being claimed.
Right.
Like, you're my artist, that's my client, right? And it's just like done with all of it for the moment.
Right.
For the moment.
Yeah. So, I won't name names, but I was at a show recently, and I was talking to the artist he's pretty acclaimed, and I introduced myself, and we're talking about the podcast and folks we know in common and things, and his show was kind of a segment of what he does. Like, he does like really serious stuff.
Yeah.
This show was like all floral still lifes, right? And he started saying it's almost like he was apologizing to me, but for the work. He's like, this stuff sells. This stuff pays bills and allows me to do the stuff I really love doing. And I was wondering, do you ever find yourself in that same sort of thing where, like, there's smaller works that isn't that don't exactly look like big stuff, but there are those incremental things that keep paying the bills.
Yeah, it's for us, it's been majority of portraits, but there's specific things that I do, specific color choices that I make, and if I'm trying something that feels new, like the one of her in front of this painting here, the view of Constantinople, right? Like, I'll take that home for a while, let it sit in the home, and see, how does that feel in the home, right? So there's certain considerations like that I take into account. Also, sizes, like specific sizes that fit well in a home, and then there's the style that's next to it, where my wife was like, what? Like, it started with this. Yeah. And she was like, if you just did that background, like, that would be amazing. I was like, I know, right? And it's kind of fun, man. I know some people are going to be like, what is going on here? But it's like, it's kind of fun, though, and I think that will actually lend itself to interior designers, art consultants. Where right now, if we send, like, one of our strategies was to send art consultants these cold emails, right? Trying to be in sales. And we only got 1 email response back, but no visit out of the like 20 we sent emails to. And what you start to realize, it was because we